Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
Welcome to Distill It with RichardListens show. I'm your host, Peter Sobey. Very excited to be here live from UBN Radio TV at the beautiful Sunset Gower Studios here in Hollywood, California. In these United States of America, we take a 360-degree view of life and sports, which we'd like to think is a pretty unique thing here. We are running on Facebook Live right now, still on the Richard Listens page. And a lot of you might know voice dictation's a thing out there, and I did it myself just now to encourage everyone to send in their questions and comments. But my dictation turned into, let's see here. I said, we will be talking live in 30 seconds. Sunday is for comments and questions. So don't wait until Sunday for your comments and questions. That was supposed to say...
you were thinking about football.
Don't forget to send us write your comments and questions right now while we're live. Do not wait until Sunday. So in taking a 360-degree view of life and sports, I'm excited to start talking about our show. But first, I will bring into the fold live on air our resident sports psychologist, Dr. Richard Ohlberger.
Hey, everybody.
Dr. Richard, how are you today?
I'm awesome.
I love to hear that. You and your kids, or you and your son, did something special a few days ago, correct?
Yeah, well, I was growing this beard in honor of our guest. To be like him, and apparently having
I just wore a hat, Richard. That's real commitment, honestly.
And as we get into the story, let me just pause for 1 second. It's Wendy and Eira from the distillery. Wendy Rosenberg and Eira Schwyzer.
Or Wendy Rosenthal, whatever.
Right. And I'm joking. Of course, I know they're Wendy Rosenthal and Eira Schwyzer.
And we did not grow out our beards.
No. As much as we were happy to have him, we did.
And we all know that Wendy's husband is Michael Swimney, not Michael Swinney. I can't even say it. So Richard.
Yeah, so the beard.
You had
the beard led
and a
to
special
good
time.
Things. So Dr. Russ didn't even know that before he even came on the show that the beard led to an eBay commercial. And so last Thursday, and I neglect that my partners here, I had to miss a meeting with them, but somehow I found myself on a set with my little ones shooting a commercial with a leaf blower. Apparently this beard makes me look like an East Coast leaf-blowing dad.
How did they find you, Richard? Seriously.
I think that, all these posts about the radio show and soccer fields and the rain, it just makes me look like really rugged outdoorsy. So,
it's brilliant.
Yeah, so I can play the part. So,
and it went good.
I think it went well. We'll see. If I'm jumping on a table with my leaf blower, if you want to buy one, then I guess it went well.
Literally, it was a commercial for leaf blowers.
Well, I think it's about it's I don't know if I'm allowed to talk out of turn here.
Oh,
it's about getting gifts for the holidays. I think the things you would get. So probably Father's Day. I'm thinking.
Oh yeah, that's right around the corner.
But
nice.
They had a couple different vignettes that were in there. So
you are so multi-talented.
You see,
psychologist, radio host, actor.
Yeah, well,
amazing.
Trying to keep my lines it's like 2 lines, and I had.
And you talked.
Wow.
Can you put it towards a SAG card now?
That's a great question. I got a lot of learning done. I got scolded by the studio teacher. That's the first thing that happened, Dr. Russ. I got smacked for not having the right paperwork and homework, and it was I almost wanted to just it's
intense.
It is intense. You have to be in school. There's laws.
Yeah, absolutely.
What were your lines like?
Show up prepared.
I don't even know if I can disclose that. I don't even know.
Okay.
But I had to I was like the Terminator of leaf blowers. I was up on stage, just like gloating about how excited I was with my new toy.
Can we have a preview party or a launch party when it comes out?
I think we should.
Okay.
And I think I deserve hazard pay because it's like 95 degrees in the summer in California in an enclosed greenhouse. So someone should do the thermodynamics, check with the leaf blowers, running. So, but we survived it. We roughed it, and
Nice. How fun is that?
it was fun. It was an adventure. So
And of
thanks.
course,
Let
as
me
hot
share.
as it was that day, today it's like 60 degrees here in Los Angeles.
Yeah,
It's
really.
crazy.
That's how we roll.
Yes. And before we get to our illustrious guests, I mean, we're really excited about them. We're going to build it up a little bit longer here. But Wendy, Eira,
Yes,
you guys did something fun the other day, I believe.
we did.
We do so many fun things. Which specific day?
Well, actually, what's
Referring
kind of
to.
fun is that I was
You were
happened
there
to be at a
too.
coffee shop, and it's funny because LA is a big place and it's spread out. For those of you watching or listening that don't live in Los Angeles, it's
a
a
very
very
big
spread
place.
out
Yep.
city.
Yeah. And Peter found your secret meeting location.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, so like I'm there
Not
having.
so much a secret
Now-
anymore. There's just
now
no
you know where
getting
to find
away.
us.
Well, here's the crazy thing, and like fans of our show, they know that we've had Garrison Reese on the show a couple times. So first of all, I'm just spontaneously had like a morning meeting at this coffee shop, and then I was gonna kill a couple hours and have lunch there. And who walks in but Garrison Reese,
So
Mr.
great.
American Ninja.
So
Right.
let's see what we've discovered. The distillery's hidden meeting place has been discovered.
Yeah,
And
Yes.
Peter's having secret meetings with Ninja Warriors.
exactly.
Yes.
Okay.
But then I get done with lunch at Garrison, and who walks in? Wendy and Eira.
That's right.
The plot is thickening here.
Richard, now you have to do is show up on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it'll be like
Sounds
the
like a
whole
party.
Richard Listens Distill It meeting place.
Come on down, Dr. Russ. We'll have some
Yeah.
acai bowls
Yes.
and cold brew.
But on a final note, the fun thing that you guys did, I was there as well. If
Yeah.
you're following me on Facebook, you probably saw a couple photos. But what was that fun thing that I saw you guys at that we did together on Friday night?
Well, we are very fortunate that my husband, Mike Swimney, also known as Mike Swinney, is very much involved with the University of Texas. And the alumni group out here called the Texas Edge had a really fantastic event the other night where they had two panels speaking with some very illustrious people, including former coach Mac Brown, who was absolutely hysterical.
Yeah, really fun.
I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to meet him. They kind of ushered him out pretty quick. New head coach of the football team, Tom Herman, who was also really engaging. A couple of former football players, some professors, all talking about. One panel was on how the university helps their athletes have a life beyond what they call the 40 acres, which is the affectionate name for the campus. And so very interesting to hear what they do as a university to try and encourage their kids to be more outside of their, the world and their life beyond athletics. And then another one was sports and media, and Jordan Levin, who is the current head of NFL content, spoke, as well as a couple of other of the professors from the School of Journalism. And it was very interesting to listen to them discuss how sports and media, combine, collide, and oftentimes, create interesting scenarios around sports. So it was
A
lots
fun night.
of fun.
Yeah. Lots of great people.
A lot of fun.
Yep.
And Wendy,
Yes.
your vow is to wear a different hat every show, which you've done. And we are getting to our guest right now because
It looks
even
like a fishing
though
hat.
I've been known
does.
to make
Yes, it
very
is.
bad segues, my segue today is actually a good segue. Your
It
hat
is. My
looks a little
hat.
like a fishing hat.
It does. In honor of our wonderful guests, I wanted to wear what my version of a fishing hat is. I'm not a fisherman. In fact, I'm really bad. I've tried fly fishing and I really sucked at it. So this was my attempt to welcome Dr. Russ and make him feel at home on our home, which
So-
is this show.
Our guest today is a Stanford University professor. Richard and I got to meet him when we traveled up to Stanford back at the end of February. And I would like Richard to kind of make a little bit of the longer introduction because this guest of ours is Dr. Russ Carpenter is out of sight. So give us a little Dr. Russ introduction, Richard.
All right, Dr. Russ. Yes, this gentleman, I'm proud to call him a friend. He really greeted us with open arms. But he is a former lineman from Occidental College here in Los Angeles, San Pedro area, if I am correct.
Occidental?
Is that correct?
Where
That-
Occidental's at, or is he from San Pedro?
No, he's hailing from Palo Alto currently.
So where's Occidental?
I believe it's in Los Angeles. I'm a New Yorker. What do I know?
But as soon as he comes on air, he'll tell us.
Yes, exactly.
Eagle Rock.
So get the introduction
Getting lost in
finished.
the
Eagle
details.
Rock, which has
Eagle Rock.
nothing to do with San Pedro.
Well, there's something
You
about San Pedro
and
in
your
there.
LA geography.
He's going to tell us.
Okay,
He will.
all
He will
right, I'm
help me.
waiting.
He will support me here, Dr. Russ.
can't wait to
okay, but that is just where his journey began. Continued, if I'm
In
correct.
San Pedro via Pasadena.
This tale is going to really.
And really
Go-
quick
go
about
viral.
your hat, Wendy. Your husband Mike Swinney says, "A Burberry fishing hat. That sound you hear is their stock crashing."
Oh,
Thank you,
boy.
Mike. So finish
So,
the introduction so we
yes.
can get Dr. Russ on
Thank
here.
you. So yes, Dr. Russ, a undergraduate in fisheries and a long journey through Sweden, if I'm correct, through a PhD in neuroscience at Stanford University, currently teaching in the College of Writing and Rhetoric, and also has an introductory summer class for all incoming athletes. Gentleman and a scholar, currently working on a book on the 10 species of trout. He's going to correct me on that. Found in Southern California, and a proud hobbyist, lurist, and fly fisherman.
Nice.
I give to you.
Beautiful. That was
Great
well done.
introduction.
We'll see how
Welcome,
much of
Russ
that was true.
Carpenter,
We'll see how
welcome.
much of that was true.
welcome, Dr. Russ Carpenter.
Feeling the love. It feels so great to be on the show. The beard, first of all.
Thank you.
The beard is fantastic.
First there was James Harden. Now there was Russ Carpenter. We could patent this thing.
I'm rocking the Russ Carpenter build beard too, but you probably can't see it because it's so darn gray.
You still got the Joe Madden thing going.
Strong
Right.
work.
Totally,
Strong
totally.
work. And of course, the fishing hat is just fantastic.
You feel at home. You feel welcome.
Yeah, it's
Good.
natural.
And
Yeah,
I
see the-
also just want to throw in our excellent engineers, Jarvis Essex, like always. Thank you for being here, Jarvis. And
Jarvis
it
left his
looks
hat
like
at home
you-
this week, though.
It looks like
Yeah.
you came across the photos, or you just found. Okay, so we have Russ Carpenter photos holding fish and stuff like that we'll get more into later. Did you get into the Dropbox, or okay, good? Because there's a couple of really specific pictures I want to talk about later, like the tiger lily and such. But Dr. Russ Carpenter, how much of Dr. Richard Olberger's introduction did he get right?
I mean, everything but Eagle Rock. Which is an important detail there.
It is. It is.
There is a San Pedro connection, though. When I went to Occidental, they have a research vessel which is based in San Pedro. So I did spend a little bit of time.
Wow.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
All right.
You get half a point for that one,
Thank
Richard.
you.
Half a point.
That's detailed background there. I'm
Thank you.
really
Not many get
impressed.
that information.
And so it's your journey is amazing, Dr. Russ. When we sat down, we had the pleasure of meeting you. I was going up to Stanford to speak at a symposium about specifically my topic was disability in the media, but that's related to you because we met you through Dr. Kathleen Tarr, another professor there at Stanford, and she's actually going to be our guest live in the studio on June 12th. She's here in Los Angeles, so we're going to welcome her into the studio. But one of the first people, I shouldn't say one of the first person she introduced us to was you. And, that first morning we were there, we were all out on that chilly patio at 9 a.m. and you gave us your time and sat down with us. And I mean, Dr. Richard will say it more graciously than me, but I mean, it's like blew us away. Like this guy that's this, you're like a big offensive lineman, and yet you're like elegant, intelligent, smart, well-spoken, insightful. I mean, the list goes on.
Yeah, I promised the ladies from the distillery that you'd have them interested in fly fishing by the end of the show.
I'm
I
open.
really appreciate that, Peter. Thank you very much for those kind words.
Yeah, absolutely. So even though Richard kind of gave the all-encompassing introduction, here at Distill It with Richard Listens, our motto is we take a 360-degree view of life in sports. And we also like to kind of touch on things that a lot of other sports shows don't touch on. Certainly, fishing isn't the most widely talked about thing you hear about on SportsCenter and stuff, and we really are fascinated with that, and we really want to get into that. But a really fascinating thing about you as well is that you were a collegiate athlete. You had aspirations to go further than that, but an injury made you rethink things. So to kind of start us off here, talk a little bit about that, where you were at with playing football in college and the right turn that you had to take.
Yeah, thank you. It was I grew up as a 3-sport athlete all throughout. As soon as I could play sports, football, wrestling, track and field, through the shot put and the discus, sports was a major part of my life. Was one of the first, or the first person from my small town in Northern California to get a full ride scholarship. I went to Occidental College, and football was a huge part of my life. Not just football, but everything that goes along with it. Training, lifting, watching film. I left Occidental and went back up north. I did grow up in a town with 500 people, which is really about 350. And LA was a lot for me, even though I got to work on that boat. So I came back to Northern California, and I played a year of junior college football. And then I played for a year at Humboldt State University. And I had a car accident, was hit by a drunk driver, and I almost lost my leg.
Oh.
So the football career was over, which was it was a blow for me, because the social aspect of the game is something that you often don't think about, and the way in which it is entangled with your identity. So it was a rough transition for me. I had some aspirations to become pro, but I want to make that caveat there. I was a really good long snapper, just 6'3" on a phone book. So I was a good offensive lineman. I wasn't a great offensive lineman, and certainly couldn't have sustained life in the big show. But I could have snapped a football for a long time. There's no doubt about it. But I had to make that pivot. I'm not going to say it was easy. It took a long time to come to grips with that. But through a study abroad program, they took a chance on an athlete with not the highest GPA. And I went to Sweden. It was a transformative experience for me. I started to put my intensity and focus that I brought to the field into work at a lab and into understanding science and learning. And it turned out to be an excellent pivot for me. I have been a neuroscientist ever since, and ended up getting my PhD, which was just about as far from my freshman year of college football game as I could have imagined. So
No doubt. And I want to get more in depth into that. But first, let's stop, because the story is so fascinating. So basically, I'm surrounded here. To my left, I've got Dr. Richard, a sports psychologist. To my right, I've got the women from the distillery who are athletic repurposing specialists. So I want to pose it to both of my team members here. You got this guy, a long snapper, and, there's talent at that, pro aspirations, even if it is as a long snapper. Starting with the women of the distillery, what do you say to this college athlete that has had a traumatic you're hit by a drunk driver? So it's not even like something dumb you did that, ended your sports career. How do you repurpose the college athlete? And then Dr. Russ kind of reflect with them, like, we want to know, did you have someone like that to talk to? And then we'll transition it over to Dr. Richard on the psychology angle.
Well, and I think that Russ, he touched upon it, because what's fascinating is that he instantly said it's not just the accident, which takes you out of what you've been doing in terms of your sport, but then it calls your identity into question. It's who am I now? So this has happened, and I nearly lost my leg, so who am I? What does it all mean in the bigger picture, in the bigger scope of things? What does it all mean? So I think that's really the first question, to start to figure out what really defines you, who you are. And you start to look at all the different things that make up this person, what your different passions are, what excites you, and start to look at a life beyond football.
Well, would I really be interested, instead of me commenting, I'd really be interested in hearing from Russ himself, because like you're saying, you didn't have aspirations to be a neuroscientist. You said yourself mediocre grades. You were always an athlete. And so how did you, in that process, or what was a turning point in your process where you said, okay, I know what steps I can take now? Because I think it's a really important thing to also note. It isn't just the playing football or any sport, that it was your whole social network, your whole everything. I mean, that's a huge shift. How did you do it? What was the turning point for you, and did you have help?
Absolutely. The things you're saying are spot on. They really resonate with my experience. It was hard. It was really hard. The social aspect that I mentioned, you've got 75 dudes that, their first name, last name, where they're from, stuff about them, so even if they're not your best friends, you have this huge social network, and that doesn't disappear, but a little bit. I was laid up for a long time, so it wasn't like a bunch of 20-year-old dudes are coming by to hang out with me, and they're doing their own thing, and life just goes on in the same trajectory for them. Well, for me, everything was different. And so there was this sort of internal thing, but there was also this physical difference too. There was a long healing process there.
Well, I can imagine there's also a shared experience that you have with these guys. There's a common vocabulary that you are all talking about, and now they have it. They're continuing on, and while you know it, it's not on a day in, day out basis, right?
Yeah, and an interesting thing about that is I couldn't watch a live football game for years.
Wow, that's fascinating.
I just wouldn't be able to walk into a stadium. Even when I was in graduate school, 6 or 8 years later at the University of South Dakota, they have this beautiful dome, and the Yotes, the Coyote team there, the Coyotes, and it was right by my house, and everybody always go to the games. It was a big deal, and I just would get so much anxiety 8 years after the fact of attending a football game, which so it tangled me up for a while with that. So it's part of that identity crisis. I will say the thing, it wasn't that I talked to anyone that helped per se, although my family is incredibly supportive. I mixed it up. I forced myself into an unfamiliar situation. I moved to Sweden by myself.
Right. Yeah.
It was wild to do that. I mean, just totally crazy. But my family said, hey, if this is what you feel, I mean, academically it was sound. I could take my last 2 classes and get my undergraduate degree. So academically it was fine. And they supported it, and they said, go for it. And that experience was a frame shift. Everything changed. So who I was then before the accident didn't matter. Who I was during the accident didn't matter. It was who I was right then as I was meeting these Swedes for the first time.
One of the things that Eira and I try and share with our clients is the fact that, as an athlete, being uncomfortable is a regular thing, right? It's like a normal thing. You're working out and your coaches are pushing you to do that one extra push up, pull up, sit up, whatever it is, that one extra rep, or you're on the field and you're forced into a scenario where you have to think differently and be uncomfortable and do something you're not used to. And it's so interesting that you're saying that the thing that got you on the path that you're on was to be uncomfortable, was to do something that mixed it up. And I think that's an amazing lesson and validation to some of the things that we've experienced in our life, and what we as consultants and people who do support people who are transitioning, that as an athlete you have that innate ability to be uncomfortable because you are all the time. So if you can repurpose it and use it like you did, look at where you've gotten to because of that. That's really amazing.
Yeah, I'm really glad to hear about you guys, the work that you're doing too, because the other thing we know about athletes generally, I mean, Terrell Owens beside the point, are incredibly coachable. Right?
Yeah.
So a little bit of coaching goes a long way with someone that maybe isn't sure what's their future looks like or what the next steps are. A little bit of coaching there can go a long way.
Absolutely.
That's so funny. Why did you pull that name out of the hat, Dr. Russ?
Well, I'm a huge Niner fan, and just always a little bit sore about Terrell Owens and his
That
behavior.
is funny.
Well, we happen to be friendly with him, and he is very coachable. Funny
Yeah.
enough, I
Is
mean,
that
it's
right?
Yeah.
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 I think
Look at
that.
me.
Yeah, but again, there's interesting that you bring it up because there's also a persona about being an athlete, right? I'm sure that, as an athlete, you're, people see you on campus and they're like, hey, you're a star athlete, you're an athlete on our team, you get out there, you're on TV, with all of that, and there is a persona that comes along with it, and when you lose that, like you did, it's also another aspect of losing or transitioning or shifting,
So, Russ, we want to get into like how you took the right turn into fishing. But Dr. Richard, you've got a college athlete here who's in a very traumatic accident, can't even go into a stadium to watch a game. What do you say to someone like this?
Well, I didn't even realize, because Dr. Russ is, he's such a cheerful guy, and he's a team player. He's used to being a teammate, right? And he likes being in that there was a grief that went along with this. And for a lot of athletes, that comes a lot later or a lot slower, right? The minutes get cut or injuries keep reoccurring. So to have this happen you're not even 21, right?
Yeah, 21, just.
Yeah, so I am just really amazed. It's almost I'm getting this Jedi it's almost like a grief and then rebirth.
Yeah.
And it's you paint this picture of a small town, but there's something really profound either in your family, it sounds like, or in that environment where you had some resources to be like, well, even though I'm grieving and I can't even look at the thing I love, there is something else I at least have the freedom to go pursue. I mean, when I hear your story, that's what stands out the most. It's like, I don't know if I could have told my parents I'm going to study fisheries, and, they would have been like, oh, go ahead. And you know what? If you want to go abroad, keep going,
Right.
So where, I'd be really curious about those resources for an athlete and for you, where, what gave you that permission to go and, kind of form this new identity and hang out with the Swedes and just explore. In a way, it's like back in infancy again, the freedom to create, a whole new identity and passion.
This speaks to a piece of advice that I just gave someone who was touring Stanford campus, a friend of a friend. Their daughter came to campus, and they were talking about this idea of, what's the persona that I undertake when I'm curating my application process and when I'm thinking about what I'm saying in my essays. And it was this idea of be yourself. And that's not a cliche, but be yourself and take opportunities as they come. And that was something that I really believed in. The Sweden connection, honestly, I saw a flyer in a building. I was exhausted. I was limping everywhere I went. And you know how it gets when you limp. My right leg was hurt. So was my left hip was hurting really badly. My lower back was sore. And so every time I would walk across campus, I knew the best route to get through campus with the least amount of stairs and the shortest distances. And I was just taking a break in pain, leaned up against a wall in some no-name building. As I was going across campus, boom, I saw this flyer for study abroad. I saw that the two classes that I needed were matched somehow. And I thought, this is it. This is something I should apply for. And then, of course, the GPA minimum was 2.75. And I had a 2.7 GPA.
Oh, my gosh.
It's under the limit, but I thought, well, I can make this happen. I just went for it. I applied, I got an interview, and it just sort of happened. And so one of the pieces of advice that I like to share is that you may have these ideas of what things are going to happen and what your life's going to look like, but really go for it. Be yourself, go along, and as opportunities come, if they feel good, take them. If they don't work out, leave them. And it's probably frustrating to hear that as someone who you're asking advice, and I'm saying, I'll just go, it'll work out. Just trust in that. But that's exactly how I've lived. I mean, even there in Sweden, the guy who I was working with in my last class professor said, Russ, what do you want to do with your life? And I said, I don't know, I want to play with fish. And he sort of laughed. He said, well, I play with fish. I said, what?
You didn't expect that answer.
Yeah. And he said, no, I have this, because I was taking a freshwater ecology course, and he was one of the instructors, and he was talking about fish biology, physiology of fishes. And he said, yeah, I do this physiology and neuroscience research, and I study rainbow trout as a model organism. And I thought to myself, that's a thing?
Wow, I like trout.
He said, I could take you downstairs right now and show you the fish. We got a fish room going.
So let me ask you one question real quick about that. So if you're talking almost the same question Peter asked me, you're talking to a 21-year-old who finds that flyer in that moment. Can you get to that moment without having a challenge ahead of it? And how did that redefine what you'd been through when you find that flyer?
I think it gave me something to focus on, for sure. You know, it wasn't, I didn't think it was a slam dunk, but it gave me something to think about when I didn't really have anything else. I mean, I was thinking about finishing my classes, but I was, going to be a semester behind. And so I just was sort of zombieing through, right? And that flyer, and I guess I do this a lot. I really can build things up in my head. I can visualize how things are going to be. And so I just started thinking, wow, Sweden, this is going to be amazing. And it gave me something to pull for, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I craved the challenge too, to be honest. As you were saying before, I thrive on being uncomfortable and changing things up. And that was an ultimate challenge. And it seemed like, okay, let's do this. Let's do something crazy. I got to pay for college now because I don't have a scholarship anymore. Yeah. I'm going to take out a student loan. I'm going to go to Sweden.
So all of a sudden, you're not focused on your injury. You're focused on ordering a burger in Sweden.
And was the love of fish there, or just did the sound of trout at that moment sound incredible?
No, so at Humboldt State, I was studying fisheries. My undergraduate degree is in fisheries. So yeah, when I was 4 years old, I was fishing for sturgeon like that in the Delta with my uncle on a small john boat. I've been doing it my whole life. I always wanted to play with fish. I mean, that was my goal. So when this guy said, he basically identified me as someone who, you like my work ethic, you like my attitude. I show up early, I stay late. I'm polite, I'm helpful, I'm doing my homework. And so he was just sort of feeling me out. And when he said, hey, I play with fish, we play with their brains and poke them around. But, and he eventually said, you want to come work for me? You can come work for me. I think, you'd be a great scientist. And I was pretty nervous about that because I didn't think of myself as an academic in that way. But it turned out to be really great. I mean, I had to clean fish tanks the next day, which I cleaned.
But you like playing with fish. So, it's kind of right up the alley, right?
Yeah. I mean, I had that hat, so I knew that.
You had to use it sometime, right?
So what I love, though, about everything he's sharing is that he's talking so much about everything that you and I discuss with our clients. I mean, this is it. He's talking about an athlete being uncomfortable. We forget how much risk an athlete has to take. Mm-hmm. It's not easy to go and try out for a team and to get turned down and to be told you're not strong in this area, go focus on that, and then to put in the training and the effort and the time to try and make yourself better and stronger and go back and try again. And athletes are taking risks all the time. And he's talking about just all of that, taking all of that an athlete knows how to innately do, take a risk, be uncomfortable, have a strong work ethic, put in the effort, and get out and do it. And so he's literally repurposed all of that athletic intelligence and said, this is what I'm going to go do. I'm going to go try it out. Yeah. What's the worst that can happen?
Unknowingly, really.
It's amazing.
And there's so much, we still got to get to Stanford and what you're teaching there, but sticking in the vein of fishing, Jarvis, can you put up that picture you're about to show? So now let's just move fast forward to your fishing life.
Jarvis is looking at you going, what?
Well, you had a picture there with the pic of Dr. Russ holding the chart of trouts. So this here is a picture because you have fished in California. Notably, you've caught 9 of 10 native California trouts. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's right.
What
What is
the
the
heck?
elusive? Yeah, what is the
Yes.
elusive
Yeah,
one?
exactly.
Which
Which
one
one's
is like
missing?
avoiding him? He's my Moby Dick.
Truly, it's so funny because it's the Eagle Lake trout.
Ah, Eagle
When I
Rock,
was a
Eagle
kid,
Lake.
I grew up very close to Eagle Lake in Lassen County in northeastern California. And when I was just a little kid, I could catch those fish on a night crawler with a little marshmallow.
Here it is. Dr. Russ's
Wow.
nemesis is on the screen right now.
And now when I want to catch, that's pretty impressive, guys. I'm gonna say.
Yeah. That's Jarvis for you. That's Jarvis.
That's
Any
we like
feels coming up when you see this fish that you want to process? Dr.
Is that
Anxiety
Russell?
is
and
that
anxiety.
fish? Is that fish like your football stadium now?
I'm not afraid to go back out to Eagle Lake.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that right now.
But anyway, you're so Eagle Lake. You're a kid.
When I was a kid, I could catch those fish left and right. I mean, a night crawler and a little marshmallow on a hook,
Yeah.
and zing it out there and just put the rod on a fork stick, sit and wait, and pretty soon, boom, you got a trout on. And now I'm an adult and I'm trying to do it fly fishing, and it's like this is my Moby Dick. I mean, there was no fish being caught by anyone any of the 4 times I went to Eagle Lake. And every single time there were fish being caught the day before, and there were fish
Wow.
being caught after. But it was just some reason I had the didn't have the luck.
And Dr. Russ, I got to say, just going to interject here because we do the show on Facebook Live at the same time. People can leave comments and questions. And one of our regular contributors is a friend of mine back from growing up in Carpentersville, Illinois, AJ Collier, and he wanted to let us know he's here. He's with us.
Nice.
Hey,
But-
Hey, AJ.
Kind of like the effect that you have, Dr. Russ, on people, I'm telling you. AJ Collier said, hey, I'm in the house, so he's here. Dr. Russ's story has hit a sensitive nerve for me, and I'm at a loss for words, which is crazy for
Wow.
AJ. And
Oh.
we've
Now
also
we have a
got
challenge from Dr. Matt Lefferman.
yeah, now we've also got Dr. Matt Lefferman checking in. He's been a guest on the show, a friend of ours. He says, great motivation from Dr. Russ regarding fishing. I have seen on ESPN. Help me understand, why is it a sport alongside football?
The challenge has been thrown
That's
down,
the
Dr.
question.
Russ.
People have that question.
Why is it a sport?
Yep.
Well, I mean, it's not a comparable sport, right? No fishermen wear armor or smash into each other, but it is certainly a.
I've heard those bass competitions
I
can
was
be
gonna
pretty
say, if
brutal,
you're-
honestly.
If you're at Eagle Lake and you haven't caught that elusive trout, and the guy in the next boat's got it, I'm not sure you're not going to be crashing into him. But go ahead.
It certainly takes skill, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Bikram yoga is a sport, and when you see someone who is an athlete, who excels at their sport, you know it, right? Michael Jordan seemed like he went a little bit faster than everyone else when he
Yeah.
played. I mean, he was when you see someone do it, it makes sense. And so these guys they're college fishing teams now, and there is professional bass fishing tournaments, and it's reflective of what people love. People love fishing, and so it makes a sort of a human nature to make a competition out of it. It's never really been my driving force as a competition, but it's something that you can make into a competition, and it's fun to watch. I think it wouldn't be on ESPN if it didn't draw in a crowd. So.
I always like to bring in a little bit of research into our shows, and I have to be honest, I started trying to do research on fly fishing as sport, and didn't find a whole lot, but it was interesting. The one thing I did find that I was fascinated by was the fact that there's apparently a big debate, maybe you know it, over trout fly fishing competitions versus bass fly fishing competitions, and how you really can't make a good competition out of fly fishing for trout because of how they congregate together, how they move through lakes together, and how it really is kind of unfair, and there's not enough variables to make it something that could be more competitive. I don't know if you've
It's
read anything about it.
unregulated. It's like sports betting.
Actually, there is competitive fly fishing. It's fairly common in Europe.
Yeah, but with bass, they were saying, not trout.
Yeah, with trout.
Oh,
And
with trout. Ah.
Fly fishing for trout is it's a thing. competition. We have a U.S. national team.
Wow.
Lance Egan, who's one of my favorite fly tires, is somebody who's consistently at the top of the field there. So it's a thing. It's not hugely popular. I would never go to a fly fishing competition, although there are fly casting competitions.
Yes, I saw
that's
that
big.
a lot. Yeah.
It's pretty popular. But the bass fishing is its own thing, right? These guys have these special boats, and they all go to the same lake and blast around and try and catch bigger fish than the others. That's all catch and release fishing too, which is great. They don't kill those fish.
And AJ is telling us IHSA has bass fishing as a school sport now. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
several
As a school
universities have.
sport. So, Dr. Russ, before we move on, though, I am curious, how much of your life are you going to spend in pursuit of that 10th trout? Like, do you plan on an expedition soon? Seriously.
It's a closed season, so it's just open during part of the year. It's open from Labor Day till December 31st. So I will be back. I grew up just an hour from that lake, so I'm up there all the time. But it's a difficult place to fish in the summer. The fish are out deep, so you can't really catch them on a fly rod in the summertime. You got to wait till the winter time when they come up to the surface. Actually, the warmer waters up near the surface in the winter, and so it's a brutal cold fishery if you want to catch them on a fly. But I'll be back as soon as the weather turns nasty up in Madison County. I'll be chaining up the SUV and heading up the hill.
Nice.
You must send us, when you do catch your Moby Dick, you must send us pictures. We need to do an update on
Absolutely.
the
We
show.
might have to be on the scene with marshmallows. We might have to be
Yeah.
out there. This is history.
And speaking of the marshmallows you used as a child, I'll make another really great segue here. You now create your own flies, which are a form of lures for fly fishing, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
And is that what you said you were writing a book? Is it on the creation of the flies?
It's that's got part of it. Yeah. The book is about the pursuit of the heritage trout and why that is even a thing. And it's really in sort of the spirit of other ecology minded books like Sand County Almanac or I guess even Silent Spring by Richard Carson. But this idea of our wild places and our wild spaces are things that we take for granted. And just right here in the state of California, there are 11 species actually of trout native to the state. So they grew up here, evolved here. They don't exist anywhere else. And most people don't even know. And if they took the time to go out and explore these places and learn about them, it could potentially change the way they interact with our natural spaces and places. And then a part of that book is the narrative of us doing it. And a part of the book is sort of the ecology and the flora and fauna of California, a huge state from the redwood forests of Northern California to the high deserts, down to Joshua Tree and coastal Southern California. It's a really diverse state. And I think having it in one place is sort of a travel guide, fishing story. And also, I do talk about some flies that I tied specifically for the Trout Challenge, thinking about the region and what those fish eat and trying to match, as it were, what the local trout are eating.
And so here's where we stand, Dr. Russ. Believe it or not, we have 5 minutes left of the show. And I do want to touch on, your teaching athletes and such. But to wrap up the fishing and the book, so you're in the process of writing it. We can expect it sometime next year, this year?
Yeah, for sure next year. Writing a book is hard.
What?
Yeah,
But if anyone could do it, you can.
I appreciate that. I'm sort of flying solo on it. I do have a friend who's a real author and is writing a book on climate change about her research that she did in Alaska, and she's got an agent and a publisher, and so I know she knows what she's doing, and we write together once a week, and so far the feedback I've got's been pretty good. So yeah, hopefully sometime next year.
So in the few minutes we have left with you, Dr. Russ, you teach. Why is it important for you to teach? When you spoke with Dr. Richard and I, Dr. Richard, kind of go into this question a bit more about teaching athletes.
Well, you saw something, right? Some people would stop their journey. I mean, to get a PhD at Stanford and neuroscience is, I don't know what the percentages are, but I definitely was intimidated by that challenge when applying for graduate school. So, I mean, right there, right? You're on A game. So maybe talk to us about, because again, you got that message from the flyer, right? To you saw something at this wonderful university, one of the most gifted in the nation. What did you notice, and what did you want to give to the university?
I think that well, I appreciate the kind words again, and I think that opportunity allows me to give back in my own unique way to these student athletes that are coming through a program. And I teach football players, but the class is open to all athletes. It's I think it's an important moment for them to realize as they come into Stanford that life isn't just sports, even though it might feel that way for them, and that they need to bring the heat in everything that they do. So I know it's sort of been a catchphrase of mine, and my students are probably sick of hearing it, but I expect my athletes to work as hard for me in class as they do for their position coach.
Yeah.
And if they bring weak sauce, I will just push it right back at them because I know they can take it, and I know it's hard. And when they say, this is hard, I say, I bet it's hard to be a student athlete at Stanford. Sounds tough. And so what are you going to do about it, right? Maybe you're going to have to get up a little earlier. Maybe you're going to have to sit in the library instead of hanging out with your buddies on the quad for 2 hours tomorrow afternoon. And I'm sorry about that. But I hope you go to the big show. And if you do, I want you to be the smartest person there. And if you don't go to the big show, I don't want you to be at a loss. I want you to feel like you have ownership of your life and your direction. So that's why I like to work with those students specifically, because I'm living proof that you never know what's going to happen, and you truly should embrace the journey and not get too tangled up in one identity wrapped around sports.
That's beautiful.
Brilliant.
We always like to
Beautiful.
end the show with some motivational words, and I mean, you just gave it to us, Dr.
Bring the
Russ.
sauce.
Yeah.
He
So,
said,
yes.
"Bring the sauce."
Bring the
That's
sauce.
all
Yeah.
I'm gonna remember.
That's it.
Well, I love that. Don't go give me none of that weak sauce. So everyone out there, if you could follow Dr. Russ's exploits on Instagram, right? At
Catfish dog.
Catfish Dog, DAWG.
Yeah.
And you could see the latest flies he's making, some fishing he's doing. We didn't even get into the beautiful tiger lily that haunts your dreams to this day. So much more. But Dr. Russ, thank you for spending tonight with us on the show.
Yeah.
Just amazing, inspirational. I hope everyone follows you on Instagram, and we're going to follow along with you here. So thanks for coming on
Thank you
Distill It
so
with
much.
Richard Listens.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Ross.
you.
Thank you.
Real treat.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Look forward to visiting with you again, and keep sending your students our way. We appreciate it.
Will do.
Thank you.
All right. And so, yes, that brings an end to our show as well. We don't even have time to go around the room with inspirational words from everyone here.
Wendy's hat says enough.
Yeah.
Wendy's hat says enough.
It's all statement.
But,
All you need to do is wear a Burberry fishing hat and all goes well.
But, in the spirit of what Dr. Russ said, be yourself, embrace yourself.
Yeah.
It doesn't get better than that, So
Absolutely.
we are not going to be back in 2 weeks from now because it's Memorial Day Monday, but we'll be back on June 5th. So until then, a quick goodbye from everyone,
Bye.
Goodbye.
Have
Thank you
a
for
great
joining us.
Memorial Day weekend, everyone.
and we'll see you next time right here.
See you, everybody.
Peace out.